Hello, it's Reija, and it's time for another Top 5 Wednesday. This week's topic is books you felt betrayed by, and I think I need to open up the term what I mean by feeling betrayed by a book, because I don't get super emotional by books or fiction in general. Like, I tend to have strong opinions, but I usually am too much of an analytical person to really get super overwhelmed emotionally by a book. So that's why when I'm talking about betrayals, I usually mean the book taking a turn that undermines the characterization or plot up to that point, or world building, or that the author did something that colored my view of their work, and that's why I can't look at it the same way as I did before. So with that said, let's just jump right in. First up, I'm going to mention Changeless by Gail Carriger. I absolutely loved the first book in the Parasol Protectorate series, Soulless. When I read the second book and noticed that the characterization of the main couple was completely changed, I really felt disappointed, and it really colored the way I view the series as a whole. I couldn't really get into the rest of the books, even though after this they do get a little bit better again. In the first book, it was established that Alexia Tarabotti and Lord Macon, the main couple, are basically on pretty much equal terms. They talk things out, they respect each other, and they have a mutual understanding of how they think of things, and they communicate. That was thrown out the window in this book. They are like two bumbling idiots in this, and I'm not going to spoil what happens in the end, but for those of you who have read this series, you'll know what I'm talking about here. The thing that happens in the end of this book could have been solved in half an hour by simply these two idiots talking things out. But no, the twist that happens in the end is completely illogical, and it's basically set up for the next book. The third book's plot couldn't happen without this book being a complete mess. Also, I thought the plot was pretty predictable, and you could really see where the story was going really early on, and that kind of ruined the surprise for me. So yeah, definitely I think that this book is one that I felt betrayed by. Next up is the Malloran series by David Eddings. Now, I've read pretty much every book David Eddings has ever written. I didn't read Malloran straight after Belgariad. I read Belgariad first, then Elenium, then Tamul, and after that I read the Malloran series. And oh man, if you've read Belgariad and liked it, and then dive into Malloran expecting to be entertained and have a good time, you're not going to get it. Eddings pretty much recycles the whole plot of the Belgariad in Malloran. The most frustrating and most intellectually insulting thing is that you are taken for a ride that spans 5 books. The whole trip, the whole journey is a complete waste of time, because the ending amounts to one person making an arbitrary choice that could have been done in the first book, but they had to make a 5-book journey to get to that point so that she could make a decision. I just felt like the books wasted my time at that point, because I first read Malloran when I was about 15, and even then, when I didn't have like a whole lot of experience of how fantasy tropes went and so forth, because Eddings was one of the first authors I ever read, even then I felt really dumbfounded by how stupid the ending was, and it completely ruined the whole series for me. Like, it even colored my view of Belgariad, which I own and I love that series, but every time I take a reread and stuff, I start remembering Malloran, and that kind of like frustrates me, because Belgariad could have just stayed as is. So yeah, Malloran is a very horrible conclusion to an otherwise pretty solid series. Next is The Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling. And this is probably going to be a very unpopular opinion, but in any case, I did not like this book. I think it kind of ruined Harry Potter for me. I like Harry Potter, all the other books, but this book I think kind of solidified the ground for Rowling to keep George Lucasing her work, so to speak. Because, for example, the whole Dumbledore backstory I felt was a bit tacked on. It should have been seeded earlier. And the whole epilogue thing, it was so unnecessary. I think the book would have held a lot better without it. And afterwards, the whole Pottermore thing, this book, I think, is the foundation for how Rowling would deal with her intellectual property going forward. Which, as I said, she is George Lucasing it, so I have a lot of opinions about George Lucas and Star Wars as well, so it's not a very good direction now, is it? Fourth, I want to talk about The Less Than Epic Adventures of TJ and Amal by E.K. Weaver. Now, I absolutely love this series. I loved it from beginning to end, and the end was really open-ended. Like, it was a kind of bittersweet open end that lets you decide what happens next to the characters, and that was fine. So, why is it on my list of books that you felt betrayed by? Well, thing that happened is that E.K. Weaver decided to do a Kickstarter that would collect the comic into different editions, and especially the omnibus edition was something that I looked forward to. It collected all the volumes up to that point into a single edition. What she did was that there were these tiers, Kickstarter stretch goals, and the more you paid, the more content you were going to get. It's fine, again, it's okay. But then she decided that she was going to make 3 alternative endings to this series, which is basically like it was canon content, and she put it behind a paywall, like you had to pay at least this and this amount to even access that material. And I felt that that was kind of a betrayal because she basically put her fans into different classes, so to speak. Like, I'm generally really against gatekeeping content. I think she can do whatever she wants with her intellectual property, that's fine, but I don't have to like it. And I really didn't like the fact that she decided to gatekeep the content from fans that could not pay enough money to access the omnibus editions. And that, I think, sucked real big. And it kind of made me think less of her as an author, not less of her work up to that point, but I was really disappointed by that particular decision. And last up, I want to mention The Tale of the Body Thief by Anne Rice, which is the fourth installment in the Vampire Chronicles series. Now, I absolutely love the first 3 Vampire Chronicles books, and I have a soft spot for Louis and Lestat and Claudia and all the other characters because I grew up with them. Vampire Chronicles was my Twilight, let's just say. That was my paranormal romance when I was a kid. So yeah, Tale of the Body Thief, 4th book, and it was horrible. It completely changed the landscape of the world that the previous books were set in, like characterization, world building. Things were just happening that were pretty much asspulls. Like, some of the things that happen in Tale of the Body Thief were not seeded at all in the previous book, so they just kind of happen and you're expected to just accept it as is. Lestat's characterization is all over the place, and the whole book just has a kind of trashy quality, like it was rushed to no end. And after reading the first 3 books, it really felt like a letdown. Like was this book even from the same author? It really made me not want to read any of the following books, even though I caved and read some of them, and they were not good either. But yeah, that book really colored my view of the Vampire Chronicles series, and I could never think of them as quality literature ever again. So those have been my picks for this week's top 5. If you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel. And if you completely disagree with me, then just leave a comment and we will have a nice debate about it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!